What is up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. And today we're getting into my Week 15 NFL Power Rankings. Only 4 more weeks of football. Can you believe that? But yeah, let's get into this here. Starting out with number 32. And honestly, this team just might be in a tier of their own. But for the sake of this video, I'm just going to keep them in this tier. We're going to have the bad tier. The Carolina Panthers this week just getting crushed by by the Saints, and it clearly just shows Frank Reich. He was not he was not the answer, but he was not the problem really either. This whole offense is just atrocious from top to bottom. The defense, it's not even enough to do anything either. So unlike some other teams where they have decent defenses that can kind of cope with bad offenses at times. But the Panthers they're the worst team in football. And it's just clear right now. So shocking that they beat the Texans in that Week 8 game or whatever that was. All right, 31. We do have the Patriots. I was debating moving this team up a spot, but didn't quite do that. Patriots getting the win this week, impressive. They are officially eliminated, but they did take it above the Panthers. I think they are a better team than the Panthers. They have a really good defense. And then the offense played good, and especially in that first half against a good Steelers defense. So give credit where credit's due to New England. They do get the win this week. But still, the flaws in that offense are really big. Ezekiel Elliott comes in, though. He runs a lot in this game, and it did help. So maybe they can take that and move with that forward into the next weeks. But then 30, I am going to keep the Commanders above them. They were on bye, so, could I have moved the Patriots above Washington? Yeah, I could. I think that would be a little bit too much recency bias, Just a week ago, Patriots just put up 6 points against an atrocious got shut out by an atrocious Chargers defense. I know Washington got burnt by Miami, but it's Chargers are a much worse team than Miami. So I'm going to keep Washington above them. But on bye week, that Commanders team is still not good in my opinion. And then 29, dropping down 2 spots, we do have the Cardinals. The Cardinals this week go 3-10. On a bye week, they are 3-10. So not much to say about Arizona. They are dropping down 2 spots though because of a couple teams deserving of coming ahead of them, I think. And then 28, we do have the Raiders going to be dropping down 4 spots this week. Just bad performance all around on the offensive end this week against the Vikings. I know that Vikings defense is decent, but they couldn't get anything going. And the defense did compete, but how much stock can you put into that with that Raiders offense or that Vikings offense struggling as much as they do? So the Raiders, they deserve to come down here. And I'm going to move them into the bad tier because of that. All right, so that is the bad tier. It's getting a little bit not as crowded, but moving on. 27, we do have the Giants going to be jumping up 2 spots. Where are they? There they are. Giants, getting the win on Monday Night Football. A wild game. Tommy DeVito playing really good in this game for the New York Giants. The defense also created turnovers. This is a good defense for New York. They have talent. Deontay Banks, got to give him a shout out. I was a big supporter of Deontay Banks coming into this draft when a lot of people weren't. He is backing that up right now. He's playing really good football, that cornerback out of Maryland. They have a good pass rush. Obviously, Kayvon Thibodeau has been playing good. So, yeah, you look at New York, they got a good defense. Tommy DeVito's doing some things, playing good football. And the Giants get the win. They've won 3 straight right now. Not enough for me to move them in the hunt, but it's a good win. They deserve to come up. And then 26, we do have the Jets jumping up 2 spots. You look at New York this week, getting the win. Zach Wilson played arguably his best game of his entire career against a good Texans defense who just a week ago, really played well against the Broncos. Zach Wilson, it wasn't the best first half, but in that second half played phenomenal. The Jets defense is what the Jets defense were. Garrett Wilson played a good game, and New York got a win against a competing playoff team. So I do think Giants and the Jets, the two New York teams, deserve to come into this decent tier for beating, legitimate at this point playoff caliber teams. And yeah, that's my reason, I think, for moving these two up into this decent tier. But then 25, we do have the Chargers dropping down 4 spots. I just don't really know the severity of this Justin Herbert injury. If Justin Herbert's injured, where is this team at? Honestly, this team might be below New England, honestly, down there. But, the Justin Herbert injury, I'm going to keep them put at 25. He is the heart and soul of that team. He is really keeping that team together. He's the only thing that's good on that team. So, that's why if you have a quarterback like Justin Herbert, you can beat some teams. You can compete. That's why they are in the decent tier. But, if Justin Herbert's out for the season, this is the second worst team in football, I think. Maybe third, probably second, below New England. All right, 24, we do have Tennessee jumping up 2 spots. The Titans this week coming back against Miami tonight. Crazy from Tennessee. I was shocked by that. I looked at the score at one point. It was 27-13. I'm like, this game's over. No need to watch that one. Focused on the Giants game. And then when I was done with it, just went to do whatever I was doing. And then I look and I got a notification saying Titans shock the Dolphins. And I'm like, what in the world? How the frick does that happen? But congratulations, Tennessee fighting with it. Will Levis played a good game. And earlier on in that game, the Titans were looking, decent. I do also remember on the news saying that the Dolphins, were in a good position to win that game. And then I thought that was that. And then I see the notification. I'm like, what the heck? But anyway, Tennessee, they were on the fringe of coming up to this tier last week after almost beating the Colts. This week, beating the Dolphins, who were a contender for me last week. They deserve it. They're going to come up into this decent tier. So good win from the Titans. Mike Vrabel just showed that he is a good coach. He can rally these players. And then number 23, we do have the Steelers dropping down 3 spots. Yeah, Pittsburgh, Mitch Trubisky is not the guy. The Steelers defense also, just wasn't the same in that first half. Got ran all over. And they lost that football game. That's a game that they should have won. They were the better team. But, that Steelers team loses, and now they're 7-6. This team is not great. They are just a decent team that I think is well coached at the head coach position by Mike Tomlin, but that's about it. That's just what they are. They have a good defense. The offense with Mitch Trubisky's, it's very similar to like a Jets team, Titans maybe. It's just not good enough. So the Steelers are going to drop down 3 spots, and at this point, do I think this team is caliber of being a playoff team? No. If the Steelers are in the playoffs, whoever plays them as a 2 seed or a 3 seed should run all over them. This team is just not that good. It's just not a very good team. It's been very fraudulent all season. They have barely won, some against some bad teams in close, like barely win them. Okay, so that is the decent tier. Let's get into the hunt. Jumping up 3 spots at 22, we have the Chicago Bears. They're going to jump up from the bad tier up to in the hunt tier. Because at this point in the NFC, the Bears are only a game back on the 7th seed. That's crazy. If you look at Chicago, this team has rallied. Give credit to the Bears coach. I forgot his name. But he's rallied this team. He's rallied this defense. They're playing a lot better. Eberflus, that's his name. They're playing a lot better. Justin Fields is playing good football. They come out and beat the Lions just a couple weeks ago or 3 weeks ago or something, before their bye week, they almost beat it. Or before that Vikings game, they almost beat Detroit. So very impressive from Chicago. They deserve it. They're coming up, and at this point, yeah, I can see the Bears getting out of this and winning the division. And also, I do think the Bears are a better team than Pittsburgh right now. So I do think they deserve to come into this in the hunt here. And then 21, we do have the Buccaneers going to be jumping up 2 spots. You look at Tampa Bay getting the win this week against Atlanta. Crazy game. Baker Mayfield plays good. The defense plays good. It's a very balanced football team. It's an average team for sure. And that not the best coaching team, but it is what it is. They are on top of the NFC South right now. So, there's that for the Bucs, but they're still just a mid team for sure. A good win this week. They deserve to come up into this in the hunt here for that. All right, 20. We do have the Falcons. They're going to be dropping down a spot. Now, I'm not going to move the Buccaneers above them. It was being played in Tampa Bay, and a very similar game when it was being played in Atlanta. Or was that? I don't know. But they both split. That's all I know. Maybe that other one was being played in Atlanta. I'm not entirely sure. But anyway, the Falcons do lose this week. Their offense decent, their defense decent. Just a similar team that's not well coached, but they have pieces. I think they have a little bit more talent on that team than Tampa Bay. So I am going to give them credit to the number 20 team just above them, but those teams are neck and neck as the game was. And then 19, we do have the Colts going to be dropping down 2 spots. And this is why I didn't have this team too high. You look at it, they lose bad to the Bengals this week. I just think the talent's lacking on this team, and it can show in some games. They're still very young. It was still an evaluation year for Indy. Don't be mad that you lost to the Bengals here. The Bengals have a lot of talent. So, if you look at Indianapolis, they are a good team. They're really well coached, but they still need to. This is still a rebuild. They still need to build that talent for them to be a really solid team, I think. And they're still in the hunt, though. I do think this team could make the playoffs right now. And I think they could, with being that well coached, they could maybe steal a wild card game. You never know. But moving on, we do have 18, the New Orleans Saints. I do think this team is still the best in the NFC South because of that defense. At least the Saints, I think, besides the Falcons and the Bucs, have an identity, and that is that solid defense, that solid secondary. That's the best unit out of any of those 3 teams, I think, is that secondary. Derek Carr, he is what it is. He's not a good quarterback. Pass rush, decent. Weapons, decent. The offense is not good, but, the Saints deserve to stay there. And I'm going to give them credit where credit's due and keep them in that tier. So that's where I have New Orleans right there. And then number 17, dropping down 3 spots, we do have the Vikings here. And the Vikings deserve to come down, man. I know it was a win, but it was against the Raiders, and they only put up 3 points, even with Justin Jefferson back and coming off a bye. I mean, that was just atrocious. The Vikings are 7-6, but just a bad week here. I know it was a win, so a win's a win. You can't punish them too much, I think. Especially, the Saints aren't really much worse. The Colts get blown out this week. Do they deserve to come below some of those other teams? I don't think so. Minnesota, but they're close. Their defense has much impressed me, though, especially as of late. They're playing good football, but man, this offense needs to figure things out because they do have weapons. Josh Dobbs, maybe he's a problem, but we'll see what happens. And then number 16, we have the Cincinnati Bengals jumping up 6 spots this week, just dominating the Colts. Jake Browning plays another good football game. The defense, this Bengals defense has been good all season, plays another good game. Jamar Chase, obviously, they have weapons. Joe Mixon. T. Higgins has been a little bit questionable all week or all season, but he's still there. Tyler Boyd's still there. They still have talent. And if Jake Browning's playing like this level, for sure, this team can make the playoffs in this crowded AFC. So I'm going to put them in it right now. Jumping up 6 spots. Really good win this week. Really impressed me. 2 really good wins in a row there from Cincinnati. And then number 15, we have the Rams. Are going to be jumping up a spot. Despite the loss, you got to give credit where credit's due. This team was neck and neck with the Ravens. They nearly won this game, which would have been just huge for their playoff opportunities. Unfortunately, lost that one. So we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, you got to give credit where credit's due. The Rams, Matthew Stafford just continues to play at an elite level. He was playing really good quarterbacking, kind of a, going under the radar MVP candidate because he's really carrying a not so great Rams team here. Puka Nacua continues to shine. Cooper Kupp's obviously Cooper Kupp. The defense is, Aaron Donald, not a whole ton, but that's enough to compete in this NFC right now, which is really crowded. So give credit where credit's due. I got to give the Rams credit. They deserve to come up here. Good week for them. And then number 14, jumping up a spot, even after a loss, or staying at the same spot, I believe, actually. Yeah, staying put. We do have the Green Bay Packers. And the Packers this week, just decent. Not the best week for them, obviously. They didn't play better than the Giants here, which is concerning. Jordan Love, not his best week, but he did just have a phenomenal game against the Chiefs. So I am going to give him, a pass here this week. They're still a really solid team. Defensively, Joe Barry just, he had a good past couple weeks, but now we saw the Joe Barry I know and love, just horrible run defense. Was lucky they caught a Saquon Barkley fumble in that end there. But yeah, still, I was debating moving the Packers below the Rams, but I'm not going to overreact like that. The Packers did beat the Rams, so they do still, I think, deserve to be ahead of them. But interesting there to see the Packers lose a game to the Giants that they should have won. I know it was on the road, and Giants were playing good football, but still not the best loss. All right, finishing it off here in the hunt. Number 13, we do have the Browns going to be staying put, getting the win against the Jaguars. And I anticipated this. This team plays a lot better at home. Played bad against the Rams on the road. Now that they're back at home, they play good. Beats the Jaguars. That pass rush was going after Trevor Lawrence all game. And then Joe Flacco did enough in that one. Good win for the Cleveland Browns. So, you know what? Give credit where credit's due. I know the Jaguars were dealing with some things going into that game, but Cleveland got the win. They're 8-5 right now. They're right in the mix to make the playoffs, and you never know with that really good defense. So at number 13, the Browns are going to be in the hunt here because I do think they are better teams in that AFC, but they do deserve to be in that tier. Or yeah, they're up there. They're close to being in that tier. Okay, moving on. At number 12, we do have the Houston Texans going to be dropping down 2 spots. This week, just offensively, I know the CJ Stroud injury is interesting. How long is he going to be out? I do think he probably will miss some time this week, but I don't really know. I can't confirm that. I believe they're playing Cleveland this week, which is going to be interesting. But yeah, I'm not going to overreact. Like I didn't overreact to the Jaguars last week, so I'm not going to do that this week to Houston. It was an unfortunate loss for them. They struggled. Even with CJ Stroud, they struggled offensively in this game. Defensively was good in the first half, but they did not play a good second half against Zach Wilson and the Jets. So that's a little bit concerning, but I'm not going to overreact again. It was a weird week for Houston for sure. So this team also played really well against the Broncos last week. We got to remember that. So, I'm going to keep the Texans. I'm going to pump the brakes a little bit, though, dropping them down 2 spots, but they still are going to stay up here. And then number 11, the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to be dropping down a spot. Jacksonville, this week, losing to the Browns. It was expected. Trevor Lawrence comes in with an ankle injury the previous week. It's going to be tough to play against that Browns defense. They tried in this game. The Jaguars defense wasn't great like they were a previous week. So that's a little bit concerning for Jacksonville. They haven't been that same unit we saw earlier this season. But again, not going to overreact, especially with some of these other teams losing. So Jacksonville going to be dropping down a spot. Interesting team, though, right now. And then number 9, dropping down 2 spots. We do have the Seahawks losing to the 49ers this week. At 6 and 7, they are going to remain here in the top 10, just barely. Geno Smith injured this week. That was an effect in this game, I think. Drew Lock, he played decent, but he's not Geno Smith. I think Geno Smith has proven this season he has been the better QB. You look at the Seahawks defense has continued to underwhelm the past few weeks. Just giving up a bunch of big plays to San Francisco 49ers. It's so frustrating. There's a lot of talent on the defense, but it's just not there. It's just not used right. There's some deficiencies as well in the secondary, in that coverage, and in that pass rush. It's just frustrating at times for Seattle. The offense plays a good game against the Niners defense until that second half, and they just don't have enough with Drew Lock in there. So it's frustrating for sure if you're a Seahawks fan, which I am, but the Niners were a good team. They do deserve to come down. This has been a really far fall for Seattle right now. So I'm going to keep them dropping down to 10, and they got another tough opponent here with the Eagles, who are going to be hungry for a win just like the Seahawks are. All right, number 9, dropping down 2 spots, we do have Detroit. The Lions, another frustrating week for this team. The past 3 games have been bad, I think, here for Detroit. Losing to Chicago. Honestly, the past 4 weeks where they almost lost to Chicago as well. I mean, it's weird to see Detroit like this right now. But honestly, this team's just not a contender right now. Let's just be frank. This team's not ready to be a contender in this NFC conference. They still have a lot of deficiencies in that secondary. Teams are exploiting that. Offensively, Jared Goff has his limitations for sure. They do need that QB. So, if you're Detroit, you're still a good team. You still have your strengths. But yeah, you haven't proven you can beat that top team since week 1. So yeah, you gotta move this team down here. I mean, they are a good football team. Don't get me wrong, but they just aren't what they've been made out to be all season, I think. And then number 8, we do have the Broncos jumping up 3 spots, handling their business this week against LA. That's what you like to see. Russell Wilson plays a good game. The defense of the Broncos plays a good game. Justin Herbert does get injured, so that did help the Broncos win. But, with the Lions, Seahawks, Jaguars losing, I'm going to move the Broncos up because of that. So they come up to 3 right there. It's a really solid team there in Denver that they got. And then number 7, we do have the Dolphins going to be dropping down 3 spots. And funny enough, the team that beat the Broncos 70-20, the Broncos are right next to them. That's pretty weird. But anyway, you look at Miami this week, just blows it against Tennessee. I'm going to move this team out of the contenders tier. Not only did they show that they can blow a game like that, but also that this team just still has not beaten the top dog. I need to see that. The reason why they were in that contender tier is because they were handling their business against these bad teams, but then they don't against the Titans. Not bad teams, but teams that are below average. And they didn't this week against Tennessee. I think this Dolphins team has potential fraud on them. They're still a good team. Don't get me wrong. I still really like that offense, of course, and the defense is still decent. But I've got to see them beat that top team. They have the Cowboys coming up in a couple weeks. They have the Jets this week. So this team, I'm going to move them out of the contender tier. I think it's time for them to drop. And then we do have the Chiefs here at number 6. The Chiefs losing again this week. They are going to be staying put, but they're going to drop down out of the contenders tier. Here, you look at Kansas City at 8-5. They clearly just weren't the better team, I think, this week. I know they had a chance to win this one, but I just think that the Bills played the better game. Patrick Mahomes just can't do it all himself. The defense for the Chiefs is still really solid, but the weapons there. Travis Kelce hasn't had that insane season we saw last year, I think, and the weapons just aren't there for Patrick Mahomes. So the offense has its limitations right now, honestly. There's only so much you can do with Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and Andy Reid, and we're seeing it this season. So, yeah, they come in at number 6. Unfortunate loss, but the Chiefs are still the Chiefs. I do think they deserve to drop out of that contenders tier, though. But then number 5, jumping up 7 spots, we have the Buffalo Bills. And you got to give credit to Buffalo. Almost beating the Eagles last week. It was very tight, or a couple weeks ago after their bye. Also, the Sean McDermott 9/11 thing's just weird. Don't really want to get into that, though, right now. We look at Buffalo, though, getting the win against Kansas City. They beat their rivals, the Chiefs, this week on the road. That was impressive. Josh Allen playing a good game. The past 3 games for the Bills, they played good football. I don't think this team's a contender right now. Not only could they miss out on the playoffs standing-wise, they got a Cowboys team as well, but they could also, they just shown that they haven't been consistent enough all year for me to put them in that contenders tier right now. But I'm going to move them a team above them, like the Chiefs. They just beat Dolphins, who they beat earlier this year, who I think at this point they're a better team of. And teams like that. So I'm going to move the Bills up 7 spots this week, taking a big leap. Okay, then number 4, we do have the Eagles. Going to be staying in the contender tier, dropping down a spot. Rough loss this week for Philly. Don't get me wrong. Just we're the worst team on the road. Some question marks are coming up with that defense. Jalen Hurts is playing decent football, but not good enough to carry that team. Teams are kind of figuring out the Eagles right now, which is interesting. But I still believe this team's played phenomenal all season. You got to keep this team in the contender tier. I think they are a contender. But interesting the way these past couple weeks have gone. And then jumping up 2 spots, we have the Dallas Cowboys, who beat the Eagles. Got to give credit. Dak Prescott's playing really good football. You got that Cowboys defense who is insane. They get the win. It's tough to beat this Cowboys team they are on right now. That defense had a rough week against Seahawks, but they figured it out this week against their rivals. So give credit where credit's due. Dallas is playing good football. They finally proved they could beat that top team. They are 10-3 right now, and they are the number 2 seed in the NFC, which is big for them. Okay, number 2, we do have the Ravens. An interesting week, almost losing to the Rams. I am going to keep them above Dallas here, but it's tight. Going to just barely keep the Ravens above them. They're going to be the only AFC team in this contenders tier, which is wild at this point with all that talent they got in that AFC conference. But Baltimore, they got the job done. Lamar Jackson plays a phenomenal game. The defense concerning this week, but they still get the win. So I'm going to keep the Eagles put at number 2 because I don't think the Cowboys are going to deserve to come above them just quite yet. But number 1, we all know them. And at this point, we said the Panthers could be in a tier of their own at the bottom. The Niners, honestly, should be at a tier of their own in the contender, the top tier. Because right now, this team is the best team in the NFL. They've got the most talent. That offense is just absurd. That defense is obviously dominant. Niners, easy, number 1. Nothing's changed there. So yeah, anyway, guys, thank you all for watching. Peace out.